Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Streamline Your Quote to Cash Process with Dynamics GP. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us today. There are a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to mention before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand so we can unmute you, or you can submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. We will answer questions throughout the presentation and we'll also follow up after the presentation to answer any additional questions. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. We have Jeff Smith, who is a Senior Client Success Manager here at Socius. So at this point, Jeff, I believe we're ready to transition over to you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I appreciate that. I first want to start by saying thank you to all of you that are joining. I know that you're all busy and we're taking time from your day, so thank you. I hope you find this worthwhile. Really, what we're trying to do today is we're really trying to provide you with some tips that can streamline your quote to cash process and enhance your customer relationships, leveraging Dynamics GP. And when I say leveraging Dynamics GP, what I mean is that Dynamics GP can act as the base for a very successful process. And we will talk about Dynamics GP, but we're also going to be talking about several other products that work in conjunction with GP to provide you with a successful process. Some of these may apply to you and your business and some may not. So certainly, and by the way, if this seems, as you go through this, if this seems like something that might be interesting to you, we certainly can take a deeper dive with you one-on-one so that we can go into some of these solutions that we're talking about today. So today's agenda looks like this. We're going to talk about a general business process overview. We're going to talk about opportunity management. We're then going to talk about quotations, as in the title of this presentation. We'll then talk about the invoicing process and collections. And really, one thing that I didn't put in the agenda that we will talk about at the end is reporting as well. So the solutions that we're going to talk about today are Dynamics GP. We'll focus primarily on sales order processing and receivables management. We will spend some time talking about Dynamics 365, which was formerly Dynamics CRM. And this is where we'll spend some time talking about managing opportunities. But we'll also talk about how your sales or business development teams can leverage Dynamics 365 to monitor opportunities, prepare proposals, and then as those proposals are accepted, we can integrate that data right into Dynamics GP, which obviously is an efficiency that you'll gain rather than a separate process. We'll talk about a tool called SalesPad. SalesPad is an add-on product that streamlines the sales order processing process for you, making things much easier. You'll see what I mean when we get to that point. We'll also talk about a tool called collections management. Streamlining the collections process is very important because if we sell a lot but don't collect very well, that's going to have a bad effect on our cash flow. We need to make sure that we create the proper behavior from our clients, and collections management will allow us to do that. At the end, I'm going to talk about a couple tools that are more reporting in nature. So I'm sure that all of you on the line are using Dynamics GP, so you're probably also using SmartList. This is a really nice complementary product that allows you to do SmartList-like queries even faster and with more power. And then lastly, we'll talk about Power BI. And if you've been spending much time with Socius over the last several years, you probably have gotten a glimpse at this at one point or another. Our focus today will be on Power BI related to sales. So first of all, I wanted to just take a moment and step back and maybe take a look at what might be, at least at a simple level, a typical sales process. So what I did is I prepared a Visio chart that might be a typical lead to cash process. So we get an opportunity, our sales team pursues it, they interact with the client or prospect, they determine their interest, they may create a new opportunity that they're tracking, which may lead to a quote. If the quote seems attractive to the prospect or the client, they're going to accept it, and then we're into the order process. So from there, the order will then pass on maybe potentially to our distribution or our warehouse team, where they will pick, pack, and ship that item. And obviously, for all of you using GP, accounting is at the bottom of all this, receiving the information. So we're going to talk about then the invoicing of the client, tracking of receivables, receipt of payment, and then managing collections activities. So your process may look slightly different, but this is a fairly common look at what a process looks like. Some of you may be more complex, some of you may be simpler, but I think you get the idea that we're trying to pursue here. So we're going to start off with opportunity management. What we're going to talk about here is taking leads, transitioning them to quotation. And the main product that we're going to focus on here is Dynamics CRM. Now, the lion's share of my presentation today will be housed in this PowerPoint presentation. I will take some times to jump out into product, but because we're trying to cover a lot in an hour's period of time, we're just going to kind of give you some screenshots, and we'll have some conversation as we go through this process. So we have had a sample CRM solution that we have to do presentations and demonstrations. So I thought I would give you some look at what CRM looks like. CRM is now it's called Dynamics 365. Some rebranding is going on, and some of you may already have this, others may be interested in it. But this is a way that we're going to track our opportunities. We're going to take those opportunities and we're going to follow through and follow up with those, track activities and interactions with our clients. We're going to prepare proposals, potentially, and then we're going to then turn those into orders if all goes well. So I just wanted to give you a quick look at what the opportunity may look like. You see that we're actually in a window here where there's a path from sales to opportunities. We've called this opportunity phone cord because this client is actually going to be purchasing a couple different phone cords. So you can see that we have one of those phone cords is here. We're going to have another one that'll total this opportunity to $1,200. Okay, and so there's a couple things to keep in mind here. Dynamics CRM has the ability to interface with Dynamics GP, which means that you can synchronize clients, you can synchronize items, and therefore I can very easily have my sales team interacting with the tool without being in Dynamics GP. And some organizations, that's really important to make sure that there is interaction but segregation at the same time. And so this gives CRM and interaction with GP gives you that capability. So what you can see here is I have the ability to close this opportunity if the client decides to purchase. And I highlighted this here so that you could maybe put it in perspective as we walk through a scenario. We also have situations where we'll pursue an opportunity but we'll lose. And therefore, you have to be prepared to mark those as lost so that you can keep a current and active pipeline. Another great thing about Dynamics CRM is that it provides you the ability to do at a user level, at a salesperson level, allows you to track your opportunities. This is a very simple query. These can be customized to meet your particular needs, but you can see that we have the topic, in this case our phone cords, the client, in this case Alcoa, the estimated revenue. You also can designate estimated close dates. I know here we use Dynamics 365 for that particular need, so that our sales management knows what they should expect, so that we can keep a nice pipeline of opportunities and keep it consistent. And we know when it ebbs and flows, and therefore other activities may come from that. So this is just one example how we've created that opportunity. Now that opportunity is available here. We'll have and this is just open opportunities, as you can see here, but I can create views that are open or closed or won or lost, and keep those all in the forefront. So a lot of times what will happen is that you'll have conversations with a prospective client or a client that you're doing some additional work with, and they then may ask you to prepare a proposal for them. Well, Dynamics 365 will allow you the opportunity to enter those proposals directly into Dynamics. Well, you can enter it directly into Dynamics 365 and maintain that and update your pipelines this way. So you can see in this case that I have my 2 power cords at $55 and $65, a quantity of 10 of each of those, and therefore that totals down to my $1,200. In this entity, you can see I'm on quotes, where before my screen was marked as opportunity. So the quote can become a byproduct of the opportunity that's created and the interaction that you may have with the client. Ultimately, this is what sales management and individual sales team members are going to want to see. Now, Dynamics GP cannot bring this to the table because it is not a client relationship management system. It is an accounting system that allows you to happen to enter orders and so forth. So in this case, what you can see is that I can then show a pipeline. I can show my activities, my open opportunities, what a sales pipeline in a graphical form that I could then drill into, etc. So these ultimately, this becomes a great reporting opportunity and a dashboard that you can stay in touch with. This is web-based, so it's very nice. You can get to it whether you're carrying an iPad, whether you're doing an Android device, whether you have a Microsoft device, or whether you're sitting at your desktop. So any of those, and you can use a variety of different browsers as well. It's not just Internet Explorer, but you can use Chrome, Firefox, etc. All right, so in that portion of the process, we're really not looking at Dynamics GP. And you may say, well, wait a minute, this was a Dynamics GP presentation. Well, it is. And what we're talking about is complementary products as well as Dynamics GP itself that will allow you to streamline this process. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was then, okay, now we have the quote, what happens next? And so I'm going to exit out of my PowerPoint for just a moment, and I'm going to go into Dynamics GP, and I just wanted to spend a minute talking about Dynamics GP and what it allows you to do. Because the sales order processing module, so you'll notice here we're on the sales tab under transactions, the sales order processing tab also allows us to do quotes, orders, invoices, and we can track those. But the difference is that Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365 is actually segregated from the accounting system. So what's going to happen is that as those quotes are created, they turn into orders. Those orders then can flow into the accounting system without the sales and business development teams having to interact in GP at all. So what that means is that it's fewer user licenses that are required in GP. And for any of you that have made that purchase, you know that there is a cost to that. And with Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365 Online, your user cost is much lower, but yet you can still feed the Dynamics GP information so that you can fulfill the orders and then invoice your clients. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware from a sales order processing perspective, we have the ability to have quotes, orders, invoices. And if that's your chosen method, you certainly have the ability to do that. Just understand that this does require that you're working in Dynamics GP with a user license. So by no means are we suggesting that you can't just do this in GP if that is your preferred method. Okay, so I'm going to go back and we'll bring back up our PowerPoint. Now, so what I'm going to lead you through now is the process of what Dynamics 365 can produce and then how that can feed into GP. So what we're going to do here is we're going to then see where earlier I showed you where we can close opportunities, and we want, as a sales manager, I want to know whether I won or lost. I don't want my pipeline cluttered with non-current activities. And so I can close as won, I can close as lost. If I close as won, we can set up workflow in Dynamics 365 that will automatically then push that quote into an order. And the system will track that workflow. It'll allow you to then take this to the next level. So ultimately, in that close process that I showed you a couple screens before, when I'm on a quote or an opportunity, this then allows me to do that. And then here's the screen you would see that if I were creating an order. So this would then allow us to take the dollars that were created in the quotation and transfer those into an order. So we can have orders sitting in Dynamics 365 that can feed and create orders to fulfill by your warehouse or distribution team in GP. So then what you can see is a screen very similar to what you saw before. And by the way, these windows are all customizable. So what we have here is we have the order that is a result of that transfer process of closing that opportunity and creating that order. So now what you can see is all of the information, the delivery address, the line items, the customer information you can see. And here you can see then is the total, which is the total of those two cables that are phone cords that we ordered. And then ultimately, this is where we would have some sort of an integration tool. So once that opportunity is closed, the quote is turned into an order, it would automatically take that order from Dynamics 365 and drop it very directly into GP. You're probably used to seeing this window maybe a little bit more, or for any of you that are new, this is what sales order processing looks like. But you can now see that the result of that transaction would ultimately be this order now sitting in GP. And in GP, that's where we can take it and process it and then ultimately take that and turn it into an invoice once it's fulfilled. Okay, so that really is all of the conversation that we're going to have in regards to Dynamics 365, the CRM portion of what we were talking about. But hopefully you can see that that tool gives us some great advantages in regards to having our sales team manage their opportunities, provide reporting to sales management so they can understand what they should be planning on, maybe changing marketing activities based upon the ebb and flow, etc. So now what we have is an order that's sitting in Dynamics GP. And so what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about how we can process those orders and fulfill those orders to the point where they then become invoices to send to our individual customers. We'll be using both Dynamics GP and SalesPad, and again, you have the ability to do all of this in Dynamics GP. Our obligation through this presentation is to also make you aware of some of the, I guess, the extra efficiencies you could gain by using SalesPad. So what we have here is, and maybe I should take a second. Lindsay, are there any questions out there right now?
There are no questions so far.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now what I wanted to talk about for a little bit then is what SalesPad brings to the table. So I have some summaries in the slide deck that'll be useful for you to kind of help you understand what you gain from each of these tools. But this is the SalesPad interface. So what this allows me to do is it allows me to bring up a customer. I can then, when I do a search on the customer, I bring up a particular customer. And this is a really nice window because what it'll do is it'll bring up all the basic information. And by the way, this customer information is pulled directly from Dynamics GP. But this window also shows me more. It shows me all of the open sales documents. So you can see that I have here the order 2323, which is that $1,200 order that I had processed through. So SalesPad acts as a front end for Dynamics GP so that you can process orders and you can search on things much easier. So you'll also notice when I bring up this customer, and I could drill into that order, by the way, you'll also notice that I can see the history for this particular customer as well. Now, in this case, we have one other invoice that has been processed here. And so, but I think the main benefit we're going to get from SalesPad is the ability to navigate much easier and much more efficiently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment and I'm just going to give you some examples of that. So I'm going to come out here and I'm going to go into SalesPad. And when you log into SalesPad, you get kind of a blank window here. But so I just wanted to kind of give you some introduction to this. If you click on the customer search, this is where you can search for your customers. And sometimes the lookups in GP are kind of a little bit slower, maybe a little harder. So this allows you to do easier searches. So for instance, if I were just interested in finding customers in Illinois, I simply type in IL and hit enter, and it will bring up those customers. Oop, my fault, I have a previous query there. So now what you can see is you can see all of the customers in Illinois. From there, I have the ability to search on the name. You'll notice that there's a variety of columns here, and I have the ability to actually change those columns if I choose to. So let's see, if I go here, I have the ability to make sure that this view has additional columns. So any of this information, so let's say email address, I have the ability to add that column to this view. That can be user specific. The other thing you have the ability to do is you have the ability to move these columns around so that they can be in the order for which you want. And lastly, if there are columns that are not important to you, you simply have the ability to drag them up and delete them off. So all of that capability exists. If I then select a customer, then it's going to take me to that window that you saw a little bit ago. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because this is similar to what you were talking about, what we were talking about before. Here's the customer, basic information such as the customer name, the class, price levels, if you're doing that type of pricing, payment terms, all of that information is right here. Also, there's address and phone number information. And then, just like we talked about before, there's all of their open transactions, whether they be fulfillment orders, whether they be orders, whether they be invoices. All of those will reside right here. Lastly, there's a variety of columns or tabs across the bottom so that you have the ability to get all kinds of good information right from here. So you can see contact address, CRM, notes, their current receivable situation. And so there's all kinds of good information, item history, so you can see what items they've ordered in the past. And as a matter of fact, you even have the ability to copy orders that they may have placed in the past. So all of that's very easy to do. If from this window I'd like to create an order or a quote, I simply click standard order, and then the system will allow me to begin to create an order. So you can see here that we have Aaron Fitz, we have all the current date information. Notice here you have line items, notes, holds, all kinds of the types of information that you'd expect that you need. And here I can then add a new line item. I have the ability from here then to type in a portion or all of the item, and then I can actually look it up. And so you can see all of this. Now what's nice is not only do you see the items, but you also then see the description, the unit of measure, how many are available, all of that information exists right here. So again, another example of how this information is at your fingertips. Something I like also is that you'll notice that you can track on every order as you go the gross margin and all of that information. So here I can come in, I can say my cost, my price, and it will automatically then adjust. So you can see here that I can then release this, and I can turn this then, I can process this through the process. And I'll click release here and click yes. Now, the reason I'm talking about that is I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint for a little bit, but we'll come back and I'll show you a few more things there. When I'm in my PowerPoint, I'm going to show you a few more features. So from here, then you can see here are the items. They look like just like they were. Oops, let me go back one. And you can see these items. So this kind of mimics what we saw in that sales order processing window I showed you earlier. So now I can enter orders directly here, or if I'm using CRM and my sales team is entering orders, then that could go into GP, and then I can see them here and process them here. So that's kind of the value proposition that you get from this. Now, there's also a really nice feature in regards to you can create workflow, and you can track where your individual transactions are in the process. So as an example, we can create different categories for pending orders, ready to pick, shipped, etc. And you can see how many of those transactions are there, and all of the line items that exist on that. So this is what the workflow looks like. And so for those of you that may use sales order processing today, you may have a process, either formal or informal, that when you get an order, you want to release that as an open order. And what we can do is have the system automatically move the order into a different batch in Dynamics GP based upon where it is in the process. So as an example, when we get the order, it goes into ready to pick. Maybe part of my process is also then to review their AR, and review the margin on that. And so this will remain in the ready to pick sales order batch until I've done those 3 steps. At that point, then, if I have a back order, we can actually have the system automatically move that to a batch called waiting product. And you can name these batches, so don't feel like there's any limitations. There's not. So then, we can get it all the way to ready to pick and shipping simply by moving the transaction through its workflow. So when I click the release button, it moved it to the ready to pick batch. And after I released it, then I approved the AR review, and it stayed there. And then I did the margin review, and it stayed there until I determined it was a back order, in which case I moved it to the waiting product. So now, if I go back into GP, what that's going to look like is it's going to look like this. We're going to have batches, and I have too many, so I apologize. I have some that are mixed in there. But you can see that I have batches that are called ready to pick, picking, review, etc., shipping. So what it's doing is it actually, as we walk through the flow in SalesPad, it moves the orders into a different batch based upon where we need it. That then provides us with the information that I was talking about when it comes to the sales monitoring, because the sales monitoring then allows us to see all of our orders and where they are. So this is a new order. This one needs POs. Here we are in review. These are being picked. These are being packed, and these are being shipped. So SalesPad and GP are working hand in hand to allow you to better track and look up and move through your sales process. And that's really the benefit that we're bringing to the table here. All right, so we've talked about workflow in SalesPad. We've talked about the batch results because of that. We've talked about the lookups. You'll notice that across the top here, I can have multiple tabs. And in fact, if any of you are using sales order processing today, you have the ability to actually add, you can have multiple orders open at the same time, and you can work on them as you work through your day. You can print documents just like you could before, and these can be formatted. This bypasses the GP forms. It actually uses very flexible forms that are inside of sales order, are actually set up inside of SalesPad. See, along with that workflow conversation, you can see that depending on how you set up that workflow, you can see that you can complete, you can invoice. The other thing that's very nice, as I'm entering transactions and I highlight a row, I can see how many I have available, on order, etc. All of that information is right there at my fingertips. So I always have more information than I would if I were in GP, because I'd have to move back and forth between screens to find that information. So here you can see that we have that order. Now we can invoice it. There are the line items. And then finally, this is an inquiry that we can do. And I can create a shipment. So again, this will move it to a different batch. This will allow me to print picking tickets, packing slips, etc. And then ultimately, I have the ability to, once I fulfilled it, as I saw through my sales monitor, I have the ability to then turn it into an invoice. And all that time, I get more information than I would have. The system will track margin, it'll track items, and it then ultimately creates history that I can review right there in front of me. And ultimately, because they're integrated, as soon as I turn it into an invoice, it moves the order over to an invoice, and you can see here are the two lines and the result of all of that process. And it's sitting in a batch called shipped. The shipped batch has the results, the orders that have been turned into invoices, and then I can post that batch each day. Now, one thing that would be nice is, wouldn't it be great if then the sales team was able to see or have access to the information after the fact, so we can actually then, through integration again, send that information back so that the sales team has the ability to go back and review the invoices and actually get summary type reports inside of CRM to see if their clients are paying on time, what invoices have been processed, etc. So this is just an example of that. And in this case, what happened is that $1,200 order ended up being one invoice for $650 because one line item was fulfilled while the other was on back order. Okay, I'll stop again for a moment and see if there are any additional questions.
There are currently no questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now where I wanted to go is I wanted to talk about, now what we've done is we've walked through our internal sales process. We've taken an opportunity, we've turned the opportunity into a quote, we've turned the quote into an order. We've then taken that order and we've fulfilled that order, And whether you're using GP to do that or SalesPad to do that, you can walk right through that process. And then you've invoiced the client. And now you're managing the receivable side of the solution. And so what I wanted to talk about now was the invoice to collections process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about collections management, and I'm going to actually go back out into GP for a moment. And collections management is actually a module that used to be a part of the GP price list, and then but was originally developed by a hang with me a second. That wasn't the screen I expected. There we go. There we go. All right, so really what collections management is it's developed by a company called Professional Advantage. Professional Advantage had made this product available years and years and years ago. Microsoft actually was what they call OEMing it, so it was on the Microsoft price list. And then they actually eventually brought it back to Professional Advantage because they could spend more concentrated time with the product. So this is an example of the main collections window. And this the idea is that this allows you to manage the collections process inside of the Dynamics GP interface. And so what you can see here is a lot of useful information. You can see here we have the customer, we have their address, we have their last payment information, we have their payment terms, their sales team. Notice there's an option here called collection plan, which we'll talk about. Year-to-date sales, life-to-date sales, and then their aging. So you can see that about $164,000 is in the first 90 days, but they have about $20,000 that is outside of that. So if we scroll down, we can see they have $20,000 that's way past due. The other thing that's nice about this is it really does give you a full picture. So here you can see any unposted sales, so are you still selling to them even though they have this heavy balance, unposted orders, unposted cash, so I've gotten some cash, and how much I have outstanding. So this takes what's here and it adds everything else, so any unposted sales and orders that would add to that total. And you can tell I use this customer a lot for my demonstrations. So, and it even does things like allowing you to track days sales outstanding. I have the ability then to create notes that would allow me to track the correspondence that I have based upon the invoices that I select. So I'm going to jump back into my slide deck to show you a little bit more about that. So here you can see that collections main window that I was telling you about. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump out and look at the notes area. So this allows me to set up certain action codes like promise to pay, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I can set all of those up. They're user defined. I can assign customers to particular collectors as well. So in this case, I'm a collector. You can track your contact date, your time. You can track the amount and the invoices that you're tracking against. So I can't show you in this slide, but if I click on this arrow, this will show me all of the outstanding invoices. So I can actually select one or more invoices that I'm making this call on. So if I had $20,000 that's in the 180-day bucket, then I have the ability to select the 3 invoices that make up that 20,000 as the subject of the call. There's a couple other things that this really does a nice job of, is it allows you to set up what are called collection plans. And so a plan might get assigned to an individual customer. So as an example, I might have a well-established high-level business client that I am probably going to be a little less stringent than the small client that has a tradition of being a late payer. So what you can see here is the steps that I might take as I go through days overdue. So in this case, 20 days before the invoice is due, I might send a letter. 10 days after it's due, I'll send a second, maybe more serious letter. At the 30-day mark, I might make a call. At the 40-day mark, I make a third call or letter. And notice over here, I have a letter ID called Aging 3, and this will make more sense here in a little bit. But basically, the idea is that you can set up at 60 days a second call, at 70 days another letter, and you can take it all the way to collections. But you may have different plans that you can assign to different clients based upon the history that you have with them and the relationship that you have with them. So Aging 3 might be a letter, but we can email those letters. So we can email that information, and this is where I can actually define the content of that email. So what you can see is that it says, thank you for your business. Your account now has documents greatly past due, and it can pull in all of the information that's appropriate so that the client knows. We also have the ability to have the system automatically copy the salesperson. We have the ability to send invoices along with certain things. So there's all kinds of functionality around this process. And then lastly, another thing that's really nice about all of this is that it allows you to actually, even from an aging report perspective, it allows you to print an aging with all of your collection notes. So if you remember that where we were putting notes and attaching those to particular invoices, that we have the ability to have an aging report that has all of those on a transaction basis. And I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. This is what it looks like. So here we have Aaron Fitz Electrical. We have $7,077.03. Here are the 3 invoices, and you can see here that I have a note that says Bob has promised to pay these 3 invoices this Friday as part of his normal weekly check run. And so, excuse me for that. So you can see that this aging then becomes far more informational and more consolidated for the collectors to have a better picture of what the activity has been and where they should prioritize their follow-up. So hopefully this makes a lot of sense to you in regards to collections. All right, I'm going to stop one more time. I'll see if there are any questions in regards to the collections portion of this discussion.
No questions yet.
Wow. Either I'm really clear or so anyway, next what I want to do is I want to kind of go through this last discussion, and that's really more of the reporting side. And so what we're going to talk about here is 2 tools that are available. One is called Smart View and one is called Power BI. So in regards to this, what I wanted to talk about was, we'll first start with Smart View. And Smart View is I guess, an enhanced version of Smart List. So you have the ability to take all the Smart Lists that come out of the box and you can transition them, but you also have the ability to create your own. And if any of you on the call have Smart List Builder, then this tool works in conjunction with Smart List Builder. So as you create custom reports, you can view those directly inside of the Smart View tool. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to exit back out, and I'm going to go out to Smart View. One of the things that I wanted to point out is Smart View has a really great advantage, because I would think that almost everybody that uses GP uses Smart List. Well, the great advantage that Smart View brings to the table is you can run Smart View inside or outside of GP. So there are licenses that you purchase, and you can run a Smart View from your desktop rather than being in GP. Again, as you invest in GP and decide your user count, if you have someone who really just needs to do this kind of inquiry, they may not have to have a GP license. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up under sales. Let's look at some of the options here. So for instance, under customers, you may have already seen some of these. You got average days to pay, customer balance. These are all the out-of-the-box smart lists that exist in GP today. So, but I also have the ability to have my own custom ones that I create. So in this example, what I've done is I've got a smart view that is just customers, and I added the column of sales year to date. And just like in Smart List, I have the ability to do ascending or descending reporting. I also have the ability to take this out to Excel, CSV, PDF. I can filter, but one of the great things that I have found is, notice at the bottom there's a subtotal already. Subtotals are automatic in Smart View. The other thing that's nice is, let's say for instance that I would like to segregate this by state. I can actually come up here and I can drag state up to the top, and now what I have is I have a report with the same total, but now it's broken down by state. If I wanted to then take that a step further, I could then come in and I could do city, and now I have by state and by city. So what you can see here is, for instance, in Washington, I have Redmond, but I have Madison and Milwaukee. So my Madison total is 21,000, etc. So you can see how these all add up, and so it will give it to me by state, by city. You can do as much of this kind of slice and dice as you see fit with subtotals automatic. So the other thing that's really nice about this as you're doing sales reporting is that it's very fast. So it doesn't bog down GP because the way it scans the data is far different. And so this is another tool that could prove to be very useful. I want to go back to the fundamental of this discussion and say that, you know, you also have the ability to do any of this just using Smart List as well. So these are just additional tools to help streamline your process. All right, so now what I want to do is kind of go into the last reporting tool, which is Power BI. And so Power BI can, again, report across any portions of GP. But what's nice about this is that it can be available on an iPad, on an Android device. It doesn't matter. It can be any way you want. Plus, it's interactive. So you're going to notice that in this particular view, I can select the year, and as I select the year, all of this will rearrange. I can select a salesperson, and as I do that, the customers and all of the other graphics will change. So it's very interactive and allows me to slice and dice. The other thing that's nice about it is it allows me to type in plain English type questions, and so I can do lookups and find things very easily inside of this solution. And I'll very quickly exit out of here, and now what we'll do is go out to Power BI. So this happens to be some that we have as samples, but I can create these dashboards that can be the top selling items, your gross margin by item, average percentage, top 5 salespeople, all of this type of information. And then I can create a tabular view too, so I can look at customers. I can look at territories. And what's nice here too is that I can have different types of graphics. So you'll notice that I have a map view here. It looks like a Bing map, but all of the data will show up where the customers are in this example. And then you can see the report in a pie chart as well. I can make adjustments based on the year. So if I click 2017, it will automatically readjust all of the information. If I selected 2016, it'll adjust it a different way. Also, we can create certain types of metrics that maybe don't exist in normal situation. So I can add like a seasonality component to it. So I could add summer as an example, and it will readjust based upon those date parameters. So a lot can be done using Power BI. And it can be customers, but it also can be items. So as you're trying to streamline your sales process, those are the two components that are most important. Who am I selling to and what are they buying? And so you can get a variety of these types of views, and associates can certainly help you design them. The nice thing about this too is it's a really inexpensive tool, and it can integrate right into your GP. Okay. So with that being said, we're hitting the ending stretch here. So what I wanted to do now, and these are just some other examples, is I wanted to kind of then look back at what we've covered, and this flow chart, and you'll get a copy of this, and Lindsay can tell you how, but this kind of shows you the different applications that we've looked at and where they play a role. And so you can see that Dynamics 365 or Dynamics CRM does all of the opportunity management. It also can do the quotes and the orders. GP can do a lot of that as well. It doesn't do the opportunities, but can do quotes and orders. And then SalesPad also can do that, and then do pick, pack, and ship, and the invoicing process. So so I included the Power BI and the Smart View as the reporting, and the collections management is kind of after the invoicing happens. What do we do? So hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to spend just a couple minutes kind of summarizing what we've covered and why we've covered it. So the benefits that you should expect from these tools is that they can eliminate redundancies because it all integrates and talks. You can improve data integrity, again, because it all integrates, and so you're not rekeying data from a CRM solution into your ERP or to create your own reports. It also, hopefully you saw this, is it enhances your data visibility, whether that be SalesPad showing you where your orders are during the entire process, or whether it be Smart View or Power BI showing you the results. And hopefully also it eliminates business silos. So the sales team and the accounting team and the distribution team can all work in concert and have access to the same data while still having their own roles and responsibilities. So therefore it provides the controls and security that you're most interested in. So I just wanted to finish up with a few questions here, like why would I use Dynamics 365? And this is really to manage sales opportunities and pipeline, track client and prospect activities and interactions, process quotations and orders, eliminate the need for the sales team to use Dynamics GP. That may be important for you. And then integrations to Dynamics GP can be built. Why would I use SalesPad? In comparison with GP, it just streamlines the order entry capabilities. It enhances customer and item lookups. It has an enhanced sales workflow and sales monitoring. Also, SalesPad comes in at a lower user cost for the license. So if you have people that are just entering orders or processing orders, they can use SalesPad rather than having a GP license. And as you saw, it has a direct integration to GP. There's no integrations that need to be set up. And then lastly, there's a mobile option for this as well. So those orders that you enter, potentially enter in SalesPad, could be entered on a tablet or a phone. Collections management, direct visibility into your GP customer transaction data because it's built into GP. It tracks collections activity in Dynamics GP. It has enhanced collection plans. Hopefully you saw that, how we can set up the steps and assign those steps to the different customers based upon our choices. And then also automated collection activities like letters and emails, etc., can all be set up and processed through collections. So Smart List is faster access to data than Smart List, available to GP and non-GP users, which can be a big deal. Automatic subtotals and multi-level sorting, as you saw. And then lastly, it's available on Power BI is available on multiple devices. It's compatible with multiple operating systems. It has a very interactive interface, and it can access data not just from GP but other sources as well. So we've seen clients that actually pull, like we have a client that sells pizza, and they can actually pull their point of sale sales data, and they can also pull weather data off the web, and they can actually start to monitor sales based on weather conditions. That's just one example. So with all of that, I know we have a couple minutes left. Are there any questions, Lindsay? And if not, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
There are not any questions. Remember, if you have questions, you can raise your hand or put them in the question box. A couple of things before we end today. Upcoming events and webinars can be found on our website at socius1.com. Our next GP webinar is November 14th from 1 to 2 Eastern. The topic is Streamline Your Procurement Process with Dynamics GP. And then again, if you have any questions after this, you can reach out to Jeff and we will get those answered for you. So since there are no, we'll wait a couple minutes for questions, but if not, everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Alrighty, we will end for today. Thanks, everyone.